Buongiorno a tutti, oggi siamo in compagnia di Mrs. Debbie Holley, Professor in the Department of Education in Anglia Ruskin University, e with Mr. Mike Hobbs, Professor in the Department of Computing and Technology in Anglia Ruskin University. Sono qui nell'Università del Salento nell'ambito del progetto Erasmus coordinato dal professor Ciavolino e dalla professoressa Palomba, e sono qui ospiti appunto della nostra università per un ciclo di seminari relativi agli aspetti socio-pedagogici e quantitativi relativi alle nuove tecnologie. Adesso cominciamo con questa breve intervista e comincerò con la professoressa Holley. Miss Holley, lately you created a framework to integrate, from a didactic point of view, mobile technologies and handheld devices for student workers who can only have a distance learning. Can you tell us shortly what it is and what were the most important achievements?
What we were looking at were students who were off campus, so trainee teachers, trainee nurses, trainee social workers. And they found it very difficult to do their studies and also be in a school, in a hospital, in a social work setting. And we looked first at trainee teachers, and they said they felt very isolated from the university. Okay. So what we did, we got some special journal articles we wanted them to read. And for one day, we did a 24-hour intervention. So we texted the students in their classroom, and we started at 6 in the morning. And every 2 hours, we added a little, and we added a question, and we added a question. And in small groups of 3, the students replied, and they built answers. Okay. And by the end of the day, we had 20 students, all with their small answers. And they had done a lot of critical interrogation of one journal article, and they found this very useful for their studies.
Okay. Another question for you. What do you think about, for Mr. Hobbs, what do you think about electronic learning? I mean, in a process of teaching and learning, what is more important between good technology and good methodology?
Well, I think both good technology and good methodology help, but in terms of learning, you do need an overarching pedagogy to tell you what you're trying to achieve with the technology. And sometimes the technology can get in the way, and people can use e-learning to repackage failed pedagogy that doesn't really work, but with the new technology makes it look good. So you do need to have good methodology and know what you're trying to achieve with the technology.
Okay. Today, in many classrooms, there are those who frankly call it the digital native. How, in your opinion, we must rethink the way of teaching? The flipped classroom can be a good alternative.
I think that's a very interesting question. Certainly in the UK, we make an assumption that because students do some technology in school, they're going to come to university and have a good understanding. We recently did a study, and we asked first semester students, please tell us about the technology you use, and are you an expert user like Frensky? Are you a digital native? How would you define yourself? It's very interesting. Most of the students, they say, yes, I'm an expert, but they're experts in Facebook and Twitter and what we would call social media, but they're not expert in using technology to study. So I think students come with different expectations, and then also now as class teachers, we have a big variety in the classroom. Some who are very expert, some who are not so expert, and we need to have good strategies for this.
For you?
Yes, very much so. I teach computer scientists, and even they come and say, oh, well, I don't really like doing this, or I don't know how to do this. So it's a case of trying to turn what I call digital passengers, they're carried along by the technology, trying to turn them into digital drivers. How can we use the technology? So we want them to actually be using the technology themselves and surprising us as much as us using it to entertain them.
Okay.
So the model in the classroom is changing from, there's a researcher called Columbus looked at technology, and he said we're moving now from the sage on the stage, where the professor is at the front and talking to the students, to much more now we are a guide on the side. We are trying to get groups of students to co-construct their learning, and to work together in groups and to work together in teams, and it's more an inquiry approach rather than the professor leading from the front saying this is how it is.
Okay, another question. New technologies means new teaching strategies. So how new technologies change the evaluation approach?
Certainly I was talking this morning with some students here, and one of the features I was talking about was where we get students to do some of the activities that Debbie was just saying. They work together in groups, and that's nice and they feel happy about that, but how do you measure that? Once they finish the activity, where is the activity? It's gone. So we get them to reflect on that activity, and they actually create a blog, and they have to take materials from the activity, sometimes video recordings, sometimes pictures, and they have to reflect in writing on that. And so they are creating their own interpretation of what happened, and it becomes a permanent record. So rather than writing an essay about a subject, they are giving a narrative of the activities that they've been doing in and with technology.
And I think one of the things where universities are slow at the moment is we still have very traditional assessment, and we have a lot of new technologies, and we have students using technologies in ways we wouldn't expect. And that doesn't mean that it's wrong or it's right, but we still set very traditional assessments. So I think when we look at constructive alignment, where you're looking at good teaching, good learning, and good assessment, we need to do more work on how are we going to reward these students who are doing fantastic work, but it may not be in a format that as a lecturer of 20 years I'm expecting. So I think we need to also think a little more about students creating all these artifacts. How can we enable them to get credit for them?
Okay. Among the key skills for life, the European Union in 2010 has also did digital competence. What's digital competence for you?
There's a lovely JISC, the Joint Information Systems Committee. They talk about digital competence. It's a framework for living today, but it's how you can critically live and learn and operate in a digital world. So it's not just about accessing the technology, it's making sense of it, it's making it meaningful, it's making it have a purpose, and maybe it's linking into lifelong learning.
Yes.
And we seem to assume that the digital framework is only going to be for young people. I think the digital framework now, it has to be part of the lifelong learning agenda.
Okay.
I don't know if you have...
Yes, I'd certainly agree with that, and I think you should be able to measure it in that, are you getting some value out of the technology in terms of, does it take you longer now to use a word processor to write an essay than it used to take if you just used pencil and paper? In which case, then there's something wrong with the use of that technology. So, and how can you extend your abilities through technology, making life easier and also getting more value added on what you're doing?
Okay, thank you. Another question about digital natives. In our society, there are trainings who are digital immigrants or digital passengers, okay, and learners who are digital natives. For you, what are the skills of the teacher who is in this strange position?
I think that's a really good question, because most universities, we still have one member of staff and one group of students.
Okay.
A really nice collaboration is the way that we work. Michael has lots of very technical skills. My technical skills maybe not so good, but I know a lot about education theory.
Okay.
And I think the new model is also working with like the technicians who are here supporting us.
Yes.
We have learning technologists in our faculty who are seen as administrators, but they are very skilled people. So I think we need more of a team approach to supporting our students, rather than this one person who's an expert on one area.
Okay.
Yeah.
And certainly I find, particularly if I've been given a new and interesting topic to teach, I walk into a room of fairly competent computer scientists, and I know that some of them won't know much about the topic. Others will know far more about the topic than I do and will be more expert. So part of it is to make sure that you utilize the knowledge in the room and don't try and tell people things that may be true, may be not true, but try and get them to contribute to the overall learning.
Ok, thank you for your time. Questa puntata termina qui. Potete trovare le notizie, le ricerche relative alla professoressa Holley e al professor Hobbs sui siti internet che vedete in sovraimpressione. Io vi ringrazio e vi saluto alla prossima puntata.